This fly is called a V-wing Mayfly, and it was developed by a young man by the name of Eric Otzinger. Eric would love that I said young man. And it's a fun fly to tie. It teaches some great technique, but it fishes extremely well. Now you can tie it with a tail, like a fork tail if you wish, or you can tie it with a trailing shuck. You can tie it as a knockdown. You can tie it as a spinner. You have a lot of options with this particular fly. But today what I want to do is I want to tie it for you with a trailing shuck. We're going to begin our thread in a reverse jam hitch. We're going to put it back to about just shy of the bend and proceed with our thread forward. By putting our thread on backwards, we can lay a thin foundation without building a lot of bulk. And I'm controlling this thread by simply putting my thread pressure toward me. I'm going to stop no further up than halfway up the shank of the hook. Bring my scissors and slice off the thread. Now we'll take our trailing shuck material, and this is micro Zelon that I've chosen. I'm going to even it up a little bit. I'm just going to trim off the butts down here and throw that out. I've tied a little knot in it so that it's the size that I want. By tying a little knot in it, it's real handy for me because I can tie up a whole bunch of these things and it's ready to go. I can tie multiple flies, and you'll see how I handle it. I'll reach underneath and do what I call a thread trap that a young lady by the name of Susie Fork at age 13 showed me when she was tying full dress Atlantic salmon flies. Simply slide the material into place. Once you have it in position, then you can tie it off, trim off the waist, and then proceed to tie back. I'm going to spin my bobbin holder in a counterclockwise direction to remove some of the twist that I've put into the thread as I wind around the shank of the hook. And then we can trim this off square. What I like to do is I like to taper it a little bit, so I'll whack it off. And the reason I like to taper it, if you think about a trailing shuck on a mayfly, there's gills, there's tails, there's legs, there's all kinds of stuff sticking out. So if you just whack it off straight like that, it may not look as realistic perhaps. Maybe I'm getting too picky in my old age, but I like to just kind of come in and just trim little bits and pieces and make it a little bit uneven. Now what I'm going to do is build, I beg pardon, what I'm going to do next, I've got to put a thread rib on. So we're going to take a little piece of thread and we're going to trap it underneath, very much like we did with the trailing shuck material. Slide it to about the length that I want it to be, and control it by putting my thread pressure right here so that it doesn't wind underneath the shank of the hook. Now I'm going to just build, it did a little bit, and I apologize for that. We're going to just build up a little bit of a taper to the body now. Now that we've built our taper, we're going to take this piece of thread and allow it to be our rib. I'll trim off the waist down here, use my hackle pliers to grab onto it and spin it in a clockwise direction, so that now by spinning it in a clockwise direction it's going to want to naturally migrate toward the eye of the hook. Counterclockwise direction wants to go back, clockwise wants to go toward the eye. So if I have enough twist in there, it's going to just naturally lay right into place. It's just going to be a subtle contrast. That way I don't have to put a lot of work into placing the thread winds. It just kind of falls right into position. And I'll tie it off. Now you can continue to wind this on down, but I'm going to stop right now because what I want to do is tie in my hackle. Let's talk briefly about a hackle cape, and we'll show you some things about the feather that I want to choose. I want the feather to be much longer than a standard dry fly hackle because of what we're going to do to V this wing to separate the barb. So I'm going to simply pull out a hackle, lay it against the shank, and you can certainly use a hackle gauge. That's going to be a little bit too long for me, but it's close. It looks huge. It's about a 14 on a size 18 hook, but I want about a size 15 on about an 18. That's about right. I'm going to trim off the waist portion of this hackle, and actually I want to get into a little bit softer portion of the rachis, so I'm going to move up even a little bit further and strip off some of the barbs at the base of the rachis, the shaft of the feather. You can certainly trim these off if you want, but it does add additional bulk, and actually in this fly it really makes little difference in the durability and security of the hackle being tied into place. Normally I would want a thread foundation to hold this material so it wouldn't slip and slide, but in this particular case, again, there's going to be so much locking this feather in place that it really matters little. So I'm going to go ahead and tie it in on the side, and this will tie down the foundation, or build a foundation, a smooth foundation, also tie down this little rib material. Put our thread right here. Now we're going to go ahead and begin winding our hackle, and you can wind it with hackle pliers if you choose. Normally, frankly, I do, but we'll just go ahead and wind it on. Now, at this point, we're going to go ahead and tie it off. And trim off the hackle. Now I'm going to take 2 or 3 more winds, and we'll know they're there. Now that we've got our hackle tied in, we're ready to split the barbs to either side. And what I like to do is I like to literally look at the front of the fly so I can see where those barbs are going. Those 3 extra winds we put on are just to lock things in place while I'm fiddling around with the wing of the fly at this point. So I'm going to look at the fly from the front. I'm going to grab onto the barbs. You may not be able to see much of what I'm doing, and I apologize for that, but unluckily I've got to see what I'm doing too. But I'm going to grab the barbs on this side essentially and do the same on the other and split them 50-50 side to side. Once I have them pretty well split side to side, there's one obstreperous barb right there that I need to get vicious with. I'm going to wiggle them back and forth with my fingers so that I've got them just actually folding down, bending down side to side. And now what we've got is almost somewhat of a spinner wing, so that now the barbs underneath have come underneath to me and away from me. And also what you can do is you can pull the bobbin holder away from you, just come in with your fingers and pinch viciously, and that helps also to crease them side to side. Now I'm going to remove 2, not 3, 2 of those winds because I could have loosened things up underneath, so I have to be real cautious not to lose my 2 winds on the hackle. So I've actually got 3 winds down there left that I have controlling the lock of the hackle. And this is where it gets a little bit more interesting. I'm going to rotate the vise over, and I want to show you where I'm going with the thread. I'm going to take the thread, I'm going to wind it right down through here, and I'm going to reach around behind these back barbs and push those barbs toward the eye of the hook. Then I'm going to come around from the front and push the front barbs back toward the back. Then I'm going to put a single wind to post it and stabilize it. In the process of doing that, I'm going to reverse the direction of my thread and do the same process again on this wing. Come behind the wing, push these back barbs toward the eye, come to the front of the wing, push the front barbs toward the back, and it's going to fan the wing apart. Then we're going to post it, then we're going to dub around the base of it and finish our fly. It's better at this point if you have flat thread so that you can control it. If the thread is twisted, it's going to twist out of position for you. If you have it flat, you can control and place where you want it to be. So we've got fairly flat thread. We're going to reach around. You see I've got control of the thread. Reach around underneath. Now I'm going to have to do something that's going to block your view. And I'm going to be essentially holding onto those barb tips so that I can control, but this is what's going to happen. They're going to pull to the front. You see that? Okay. I'm going to grab it, pinch it, pull it to the front, and wind around the eye. Now I've got those kicked to the front. Now what I'm going to do is come behind and reverse the process. Now you can see I've got the wing fanned. Now what I'm going to do is come around it with a post, seat the post, pull my thread back, and now I've got the thread going in the opposite direction. Now I'm going to come behind the wing, pull this near wing forward, just reverse the process. Got a couple little strays, and I apologize for that. You can capture them later, or you can get vicious and scissor them, which I'll probably do here in a little bit. Same process. Now we've got our thread around the wing. Now everybody hide your eyes because I'm going to trim a couple of stray barbs that I missed. One more. Now we're going to dub our fly, and I'm going to put on the dubbing in a clockwise direction. In other words, I'm going to twist it on this direction because, again, every time you take a wind around the shank of the hook, you're putting a clockwise twist in the thread. So it actually helps to reinforce the dubbing itself. If you put it on in a counterclockwise direction, it'll actually loosen, is what I'm saying. Now I've dubbed on flat thread so that I can take my finger. You notice I've dubbed as close as I can get my hand, but I'm not really where I want the dubbing to be. So I'll simply take my finger on flat thread and I can just slide the dubbing right up to the fly. Now, I pulled too tight. What I did is I pulled this wing toward me. So what we're going to do now is going to simply X between, come up, build the base of the thorax, come between, come around, and now I've got it loose just to the base, and I want to show you a method of whip finishing dubbing. We've got just a little bit of dubbing left, and if you want to have a dubbed head on this fly, what you can do is just leave that sparse amount of dubbing, come up with your whip finish, lay your thread right up against that dubbing, simply wind around it. Now you have a dubbed head rather than a thread head, and that may be beneficial on some flies. Slip off our thread, take a look, make sure the wings are where you want them to be, and that's our finished V-wing mayfly.